comfortable with ambiguity or the fact that there isn't a right answer. Again, I suspect that that's not a problem. There we go. So, biggest surprises that we see, and this comes back to sort of something Kevin asked, like, what did they actually do? Like, we want to know, what did they do? Because there's some sense that that was either the right answer or the wrong answer. Again, look it up later if you care, or sometimes the faculty member will hand out the case that says this is what they did and what happened. Research it later if you care. But just understand that if there's one right answer in the case, you're probably not getting the case. Because then what happens is everyone very quickly comes to the right answer, and it's not a very interesting discussion. The cases that we give you are intended to generate discussion. So the biggest surprise that we find, so I talked to a bunch of faculty members and said, all right, like, what's the biggest surprise? Is the second bullet that I mentioned a couple of times, which is students don't actually use the frameworks from the class. Kind of perplexing. And the conclusions or your recommendations don't actually come from the things you're learning in class. It's very odd. Because what that says is you either didn't do the work at all, and so you're just sort of coming up with things off the top of your head, or you spent a lot of time thinking about something that wasn't part of the class you were actually taking. Not necessarily bad, but you're sort of off track. And it happens more often than you might think. This is these two are very similar.
Well, you had that already
Class
up
2.
there, didn't you?
Yeah.
I have seen it many times where I come in and there are two students sitting somewhere, usually in the back of the room, who are like, okay, did you read the case? Like, so you read page 1, I'll read page 2, quick. Doesn't work because, as you've noticed, I tend to walk around a lot. I tend to pay attention. So sitting at the wings, what was that? And Michael, that doesn't work. And most of the instructors I think all of the instructors that you'll get in this program are extremely experienced instructors. So we're all hip to sort of all the things that students do to try to get out of being called on. So winging it, like, again, depending on the faculty member, they may just ignore you at that point. It's like, Robert didn't come prepared. I mentally now know that he didn't come prepared, so I'm just not going to engage him. Because I want to reward the students who have done the work, and you're not going to contribute to it because you actually clearly haven't done the work, so you're going to take us off.
Where do I go?
So some will be like that. Some will be like, again, it's early in the semester. Robert, you are now the point I'm going to make. Right?
So did you?
Why? Because you're probably not the only one. It's just you're the one that I saw that is clearly not prepared in some ways.
I don't see
And
which
so
one I'm
now what I
supposed
want
to
to do is I want to scare the hell out of everybody else because you don't want to.
Did you go over here and get to the creative?
Right. It can
Go
be
to
very
Creative
effective. It can also
Studio.
backfire, but that is
Hey,
it.
go to live stream.
Questions?
Oh, wait a minute. Actually,
And by the way, most of us are really good at silence. So this is a common technique. Typically, undergrads use it again, not necessarily in this
go
class.
back?
But like, I will ask
Oh,
a
events,
question and I will say
sorry.
nothing for 5 or 6 minutes.
okay.
And you just watch
Here we
the
go.
students just like melt down.
Yeah,
It's
I've
awesome.
done that.
I have no problem sitting there just staring at you. Olivier. You don't. Yeah, that's
Oh,
a great
man.
question. So,
Okay,
it's
so
hard
let's
to come.
stop
so-
streaming from here.
It might be a little bit,
All right, so how do we...
small
So we have to get some.
That's okay. It's hard to come up
This
with
is still waiting for a
case
signal.
to teach
Although
cases
you should be able to go to the
because you have
dashboard now.
Right, you've had no
What's the dash?
classes.
This?
So this
What's
is
the
this
dash?
is sort of one of the cases
Well,
that Harvard recommends
here.
that people use. So it's
Live
typically
control
room,
used
yeah.
as a case to teach how to teach
Yeah.
cases. So
Okay,
it's
so
essentially
here,
like
once
what
again,
would
we
you
are not
do?
receiving, but it's
it would sometimes
it's
be
not
taught in,
streaming,
like,
it's still live.
organizational
So we just
behavior
leave
or
this one,
leadership
keep
class.
let it
In
go.
this class, I think
Now-
it'll work because you've all
Now this
getting
is really
audio.
weird that we're getting
So, it should
audio
work
but
okay.
no
So there's
video.
no framework
All
other
right,
than,
so,
like,
shit.
what would you
I gotta
do?
meet
Like,
the other
your-
people.
I'm gonna do one more of these shutdowns and bring it back. Which one did you bring up for this? Oh, you just have
Yeah.
just anyone.
Alright,
Okay.
Sorry,
I need to make sure I meet up with the other folks.
Okay.
Depends. It really depends on the course. So
Okay.
sometimes like accounting courses will have none. Sometimes they'll have a few. Same with finance. If you're taking like a leadership or an organizational behavioral type class, I would expect more cases. In economics, you probably won't get any. I don't think Steve T uses any actual cases. When I teach econ, I actually use cases, but I don't know. Some will have 0, some will have 1. Chin Chin?
Fuck me. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go right
Why
back
are
again and shut all this down. Let's close this. Close that. Getting
Right.
audio but no video. Just getting the scene
Sure.
there.
So you're going to love this answer, it depends. So yeah, as managers, if you haven't learned that answer, it's the absolute best answer ever. But the follow-up question you should ask is why. So some faculty will actually have sort of like I said, they'll either give you the B case or the follow-on case, which sort of outlines what was actually done. Sometimes they will have handouts that basically summarize sort of what they hope you learned from the case. Sometimes it's you need to take notes. So for example, when you come in tomorrow, depending on the exact timing, I've got some board work that I'm going to put up there. So as we discuss the case, I will write things on the board, and so essentially those are like Dinesh, like what was the main issue that Joe was facing, and then I'll actually write a shorthand of that down. And if Marina disagrees, I'll write that down too potentially. So. So what you'll find here is that every faculty member probably teaches slightly differently the case methodology. So there's a formal Harvard way of doing it. That's where it originated. And then, but most of us sort of take that and then do slightly different things to fit either our teaching style or what we want to get across. So some people won't do any board work. Some will have lots of board work. Some will have handouts after, some won't. So if it's unclear, I would ask that of the individual faculty. Like when you take the class, I would ask, like, okay, am I supposed to be taking all these notes, or are you going to give us something after? Kind of thing. But I mean, to also answer your question, yes, you should be paying attention to what everyone else is saying, because it's the discussion. It's typically the discussion that matters, not the answer. Other questions? Hey, Hallie, sorry. Damn, first one I blew. No. Yeah, it's just for your enjoyment. No. So I realize I just incented nobody to actually do the work. And even if I had to turn it in, no, for a lot of reasons. Not everybody's on B courses, so typically I would have people do things on B courses. So there's a way to turn things in, which you will learn. I don't know if every faculty member does that, but that's what I do, because I don't like paper. I don't want to write paper. So not everybody has access, so I couldn't do that. The other is you don't have a lot of time, like in giving you a case, or you just got it. You have stuff until late this afternoon or early evening. My guess is you don't want to spend the whole of your evening before tomorrow morning doing this. So realize that if you don't spend the time prepping, then you may lose some of the value of this second half of this part of the module. And also realize that you run the risk, if I think you didn't prepare, you now become irrelevant. For this class, maybe not, but I may just decide to see my moments. Nope. you're doing it on your own. So what I did give you, what I don't think you have yet though, is the questions. So Catherine, do they have the questions yet? I don't know. I sent them to Adrian. Yes, thank you. That's actually for this afternoon, so we may not have them yet. So you'll have. So basically, the answer to your question is, I did give you some guidance, like I would if this were a normal class. Like here are the questions to answer. So there's no framework again other than it's a typical management problem, which is you're behind schedule. You've got some conflict between some employees. You're not being very effective, and you've got a big meeting coming up. Okay, I suspect that everybody in the room can relate to that at least in some ways. So the framework is your real life experience. Other questions? Brina, and then Renee. Probably. I mean, the faculty member will tell you what they want.
Right, left. Let's try this.
Sure.
On.
So teamwork is always challenging. So in the purpose, so so sometimes, like if the faculty member basically says you need to turn in a group answer, then at some point, at some level, you're going to have to come to some sort of, your arm wrestling or flipping coins, whatever it is. You have to come to some sort of consensus. If it's individual, then I would just use the group to sort of play devil's advocate and work it out. If you don't agree, then you write it up yourself, your own way. Again, the thing to keep in mind is you're not looking for a right answer. So that, my experience with groups is that typically where conflict comes in, sometimes it is really totally difference of opinion. Sometimes though, they're looking for an answer and they're like, well, that's not the right answer. The other thing though within groups is, especially with this type of work, make sure you're not passive in the group, because the point of working in the group is to sort of be able to bounce those ideas off of versus just sitting there and doing nothing, and then you come into class and you really haven't learned anything. Because ultimately the point of the cases is to have you learn something. Apply the frameworks, take some lessons away. So if you're passive in the group or you're passive in the class and aren't really paying attention, then just recognize that you're not going to get the benefit of sort of sitting in this classroom, spending your money, right? So don't forget, you're paying for this, right? And my guess is that nobody is forcing you to be here. So it's very different than an undergrad experience. Rainier. Yep. Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. So essentially, do I look at the questions first to guide the way I read, or do I just read it and then look at the questions? My opinion is you're better off reading it first, then looking at the questions. And the reason I say that is because you've probably had the framework already, so you kind of want to, the questions will absolutely focus you, but they will also bias the way you think, right? So the way you write a question, like, why was Melody such an idiot? Sorry. Now, what are we all looking at? We're all looking for all the things that Melody screwed up versus the things that she did really well. And so, again, most faculty probably would not write a question like that, but writing good questions is really, really hard because you don't want to bias, and unfortunately most of them, like even the questions I wrote for this, may bias you in certain ways. And so I would recommend you read it once first, and then look at the questions after. Get the one. That's what I would do. Other questions? Okay, so 5-ish minute break, 7-minute break, 10? Because
God damn it.
pardon?
Because
Two quick
signal.
announcements.
This doesn't look like we're getting any signal out of this.
Okay, perfect.
This does not look like we're getting any signal out of it. Let's do that. Stream. Okay, well. Keep going. You can just work with this thing all day and
Cool. All right, so take a short break, like no more than 10 minutes, because I am also teaching you the next module. So this is a micro refresher. So as I mentioned, a couple of you have to put up with me for like 3 hours drilling on. Thank you.
still not there. Not getting any. Seeing it. Plug it into this thing. I'm not getting any signal out of it. Okay. Well, we're not. Putting the thermometer on here. Should be seeing something. This guy. Not getting. off. Okay. Actually, signal here. Switch. We are getting excellent signal. Okay, signal in there. Okay. So let's close this.